I like it when the mood is bad and the reality is good. You and I have talked before, Charlotte, about the fact that when people buy financial goods, they take a leave of their senses. They're much better at buying physical goods. When somebody goes to buy a coat for winter, they shop around for bargains. When people buy financial assets, they don't seem to do that. And I prefer being able to take advantage of other people's mistakes. And people are making mistakes right now. Before I even ask them, I look at who the people are. What you find is that some people are serially successful and most people are serially unsuccessful. The point of the game is to hang out with serially successful people. So if I don't know somebody or I don't know somebody who will vouch for somebody, I don't care. I didn't get around to asking the first question. Yes, on occasion, there's a drill hole in a setting that catches my fancy and I come to learn more. But the truth is that my first criterion for small companies is all people. Something's going wrong in the world. It isn't that gold is going up, it's that the purchasing power of the dollar is going down. I said in a previous interview, Charlotte, that when people ask me when the price of gold's going to go up, I scratch my chin sagely and I say 2000. In 2000, it was $250 an ounce. Now it's what, 29? So it's up sevenfold. It's gone up 8% a year for 25 years compounded. That's up. I think it's going to go higher.
Yeah.
Because I think the arithmetic around the US dollar, not relative to other currencies, but relative to real things, is going to go down. I'm afraid, literally afraid, that gold is going to go much higher because the circumstance that causes it to go much higher is unpleasant for the rest of our lives. And your life and my life are pretty good. I wouldn't be surprised over time to see another digit. So $10,000 plus. This is not a price projection, but the last time that savers lost faith in the US dollar was the 1970s. And in the 1970s, the purchasing power of the US dollar over 10 years declined by 75%. Not coincidentally, the gold price went from $35 to $850. My belief is that in the next 10 years, the US dollar will lose 75% of its purchasing power. And I'm not trying to say that gold will go up 30-fold, but if the US dollar losing 75% of its purchasing power, it makes absolute sense that gold would go up fourfold. I think there are several similarities. In the early part of the 1970s, we were coming off a pretty good time from the end of World War II to the commencement of the 1970s. The 50s and the 60s were boom times. The Nifty 50, people buying the dips, all that kind of stuff. People were under-investing in resources because there were too many investment opportunities. We came into the early part of the decade of the 70s with a lot of hubris, but there were underlying weaknesses in the U.S. economy, eerily similar to today. We've come off the period 1982 to really 2022. We had a 40-year period of really benign economic climate, falling interest rates, strengthened the dollar so we could export our problems, the U.S. could to other countries. And there's 40 years of accumulated hubris. I think, don't get me wrong, I'm not one of these gloom and doomers. I don't think that the U.S. Treasury market's going to go away. I don't think the U.S. dollar is going to go away. I think that the benevolent climate that we've existed in is going to change. And I think it's going to change for about 10 years. I think, unfortunately, that'll be very good for gold because I think it'll be bad for the U.S. dollar. I think it'll be good for other commodities for other reasons, largely underinvestment in those commodities. I think for the PDAC, that the PDAC 10 years from now will look very different than it looks today. Very, very, very different. The recently announced deal where Equinox is taking over Caliber makes, in a sense, no synergistic sense, but it makes great scale sense. A larger company has greater trading liquidity, which means that it's a higher share price, which means it has a lower cost of capital in a capital-intensive business. So amalgamations make sense from that point of view. They make sense also because if the merger is structured right, you lower the general and administrative expense relative to free cash flow and relative to assets under management. The industry has way too much G&A expense. I think you're also going to see strategic mergers. I think you're going to see companies take over companies that have projects which are synergistic to their existing projects. And I think that you're going to see bigger companies take over smaller companies because bigger companies have a lower cost of capital than smaller companies do. All of this is good. It adds efficiency to the sector, it adds liquidity to the sector, and it adds hope to the sector. All of those are good. I hope that anybody that takes them over is taking them over with the view to participating in the larger whole, which is to say the other part of the deposit, which is, being developed by G mining. My belief is that that is ultimately one system and that it will ultimately be one 10 million ounce mine. Whether the merger takes place between G2 and G mining, or whether an amalgamation with Goldfields trying to get into the project or somebody else is an open question. But that deposit is merely bisected by an artificial line on a map. And it should be developed in terms of infrastructure, in terms of energy, in terms of processing facility as one deposit. I think most of what Trump has done so far is theater. I did read his book, The Art of the Deal. For people who want to get to know more about Trump, you should learn about Trump in his own words. Not a pleasant book. Mr. Trump believes very differently than me. He believes in every transaction there's only one winner. I believe in a good transaction there's two winners. So on the face of it, I'm not a Trump fan. In terms of reducing the size of the U.S. government, that has to happen. I look at the Republican budget from a week ago, and it's very obvious that while they talk spending, they don't do spending. And I think that's problematic. A different book that your audience should read to understand Trump and his impact on the world is a book called The Triumph of Politics by David Stockman. He was the director of the Office of Management and Budget in the Reagan years. And he talks about how the political process derailed deregulation in the United States, and it did it very, very, very quickly. This most recent budget, where there was only one Republican that voted against it, will tell you something about their seriousness with regards to reducing spending, which is to say they are not serious. Well, and what Trump is proposing is theater. He says, I should go and take a look. I don't care if he takes a look or not. I don't care if he takes a video. There are proper procedures for auditing gold. At Sprott, every year, we had to audit billions and billions and billions of dollars worth of gold. We know how to do this. The American people deserve an independent audit on the gold at Fort Knox, and they deserve a title opinion. There are legitimate questions as to whether that gold has been hypothecated. There are other questions as to whether it exists at all. Now, my own particular belief is that it probably exists. But the truth is, Rick Rule's belief in 350 is good for a cup of coffee at Starbucks. There needs to be an audit, and there needs to be an audited title opinion on that gold. We need to know how much is there, and we need to know it's ours. These are people who use too many narcotics. If you monetize the gold, the Fed's balance sheet looks better, but it doesn't solve the problem, which is debt. Let's say that I loaned money for U.S. Treasury, and let's say that the U.S. Treasury decided not to pay me. I'm going to go present a bill and collect the gold when they have the guns. Government has a monopoly on extortion, on violence, and on fraud. Monetizing the gold is accounting trickery because nobody has access to it. Put bluntly, it's fraud. I'm not sure that the Chinese government is transparent. The Chinese government is forthcoming with information. Whether or not that information is factual is a different question. I've been a China watcher for a very long time. I consume information about China, and I give them as much credit for veracity as I do my own government, which is to say none. I think that'll be interesting. If he actually is able, one thing he could do very well is improve the regulatory environment in the United States. I look at what Elon Musk has done at X. Whether or not you like Twitter as a service, he's doubled the transactional volume on Twitter, and he's reduced the headcount by 80%. If you could take some of the U.S. agencies and take away the political process, he could really improve the U.S. economy. Whether he's able to do that or not is a very, very, very different story of states. I don't know whether he'll be able to do it. Right now, there is a lot of divisiveness in U.S. politics, and I think that's good. The idea that government is fighting with itself so much that they can't pay attention to me is probably a very good thing. The idea that Congress is fighting with each other and fighting with the president means that they can't cooperate to reduce my freedom and reduce my wealth. So unlike the rest of my country, which wants to prevail against the other side, the Republicans want to whoop the Democrats, or the Democrats want to whoop the Republicans, I want the Democrats and the Republicans to leave me alone. And the fact that they're fighting with each other is probably on balance a very good thing for me. It keeps them from being able to do anything. And all I ask of them is to do nothing.
I'm libertarian, and I'm anti-tax. Tariffs are taxes. Whether Mr. Trump cares to admit it or not, tariffs are taxes. If you're anti-tax, you can't be pro-tariff. So let's get that out of the way. The idea that you would pick fights with the whole world, as opposed to pick fights one or two at a time, seems tactically stupid to me. I liked the political slogan in Turkey before Erdogan: many friends, no enemies. That would be my idea of a good time. I think partly Mr. Trump likes theater. I think also that Mr. Trump believes that his political power stems from voicing the frustrations of some of his constituency. So I think a lot of what's going on is theater. I happen to believe it's harmful theater. As I say, my own foreign policy, were there to be a rule policy, it would be many friends, no enemies. To the extent that people were legitimately taking advantage of us, that's a very different circumstance. But I would suggest to you that there are certain areas where Canada, as an example, enjoys competitive advantage over the U.S. You can ship goods cheaper. There are other circumstances, like the Quebec dairy industry, where the Canadians deserve to get spanked. That part's true. But the truth is that you don't... I mean, the idea, as an example, that America's fentanyl problem is a consequence of Canada suggests that Mr. Trump uses too much fentanyl. It's just an absurdity.